At the beginning of 2022, I made a little challenge to myself. I wanted to start making essay-style content here on YouTube, but I found myself struggling to write because I was always distracted. The world around me felt noisy, and I needed to do something about it, so I disabled notifications across all my social media apps, and I wanted to talk about how things changed for me.
Dopamine.
Dopamine has become one of the big buzzwords as smartphones have gradually taken over our lives, and for good reason. You hear more and more about this generation's quest for dopamine, and it's probably even more crippling than we realize. This is a clip from Chris Williamson's interview with Dr. Andrew Huberman on the Modern Wisdom podcast, and he explains the issue pretty concisely.
We often hear that social media is getting dopamine hit after dopamine hit. When we first get on social media for the first time or after a long period of time, the amount of dopamine that's released we think is quite substantial. It's novel. Remember, dopamine is about novelty, surprise, and the sense that we are on some exciting track. That's what dopamine is really about. It puts us into states of readiness, anticipation, looking, seeking, etc., almost always for things outside the confines of our skin. And then what happens is you start getting the system working for that next dopamine hit that you don't know when it's going to come. It's just like gambling. So I look at social media as initially being very dopaminergic, driving reward, surprise, and excitement, but very quickly transitioning to something more like OCD.
This was the thing that really concerned me. The obsessive nature of my smartphone usage wasn't delivering the dopamine that it used to, and I wanted to do something about it. And I want to say right off the bat that I didn't quit social media, and I'm not telling you to either. This isn't one of those 30 days without social media challenges. I reached a point where instead of checking my phone when I had free time, it was constantly pulling me away from the world around me and keeping me from getting meaningful work done. So I decided to disable all notifications with the exception of text messages and my professional email. This felt like the simplest step that I could take to decrease my social media usage without deleting the apps altogether. And shocker, it wasn't really that hard. More than anything, things just seemed quiet for the first few days. I was still checking my phone a lot, but it felt like the power dynamic had changed. Instead of Twitter or Instagram pulling me away from whatever work I was trying to get done, I would just open them up when I needed a break. And this might seem like a complete no-brainer to you. You're probably thinking, yeah, this is what Do Not Disturb is for, you idiot.
You're not very bright, are you?
Trust me. I'm fully aware that Do Not Disturb exists, but it felt like duct tape rather than a real solution. If I'm used to a steady stream of notifications throughout the day, the only thing that's going to be on my mind when Do Not Disturb is on is the lack of notifications. I wanted to get used to radio silence instead of subjecting myself to it when I needed to focus. And the silence was golden. I found myself being able to write for longer periods of time, I was more focused in class and at rehearsals, and I was just on my phone less often. I've always been a firm believer that incremental changes are superior to lifestyle overhauls. Once I disabled notifications, I asked myself what was next. What was another small step I could take to make my work time even more productive? After sitting with this question for a while, I ended up deleting TikTok entirely, which was a huge win. I read 10 books throughout the year, which is more than I've read in the last 3 years combined, and I released my first video essay. Individually, these seem like pretty small achievements, but when added together, 2022 felt like a really productive year for me. Disabling notifications isn't going to change your life, but sometimes the subtle changes can have the largest impact. When you make a few small improvements here and there that you can really follow through on, it gets easier and easier to build on those successes as time goes on. Disabling notifications was the first of many steps I took to decrease my phone usage and increase my productivity, and it could be a great first step for you too. Let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.